Garth, thank you. Well, to developing news now, the US government is on the brink of ending its historic shutdown after reaching a deal in the Senate. US correspondent Rob Scott joins us now with the details live. Rob, this shutdown has been wreaking havoc with flights globally. So exactly how will this agreement work?
Well, Tasha, we're still in the very preliminary stages of all the details coming out. But essentially what's happened is that enough Democrats have now agreed to sign on to this deal to fund the US government, at least temporarily, through to the end of January, paving the way for the shutdown to come to a close. It is already into its 40th day, the longest in US history. And senators had been working across the weekend, a rare weekend sitting in Washington, trying to come up with this breakthrough. That happened in the last hour or so.
Okay. So this is absolutely insane. Congress just gave Trump an ultimatum. Not next week, not after more hearings. Right now, over 120 House members and at least 7 senators just stood up in a televised session and said, resign by the end of the day or face immediate impeachment. This is unprecedented. Congress has never done anything like this before. They've impeached presidents, they've investigated presidents, but they've never given a president an hours-long deadline to resign or face instant impeachment proceedings. This is a constitutional crisis happening in real time, and it's all playing out right now on Capitol Hill. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
Let's bring in Congressman Kinzinger as well. So, Congressman Kinzinger, you've been outspoken about the president's conduct. You've said that the 25th Amendment should be invoked. You've encouraged the vice president to lead that effort. Will you vote for an impeachment resolution?
Look, I'll vote the right way when whatever's put in front of me. There's a lot of still negotiation going on. I honestly don't think impeachment's the smart move, because I think it victimizes Donald Trump again. And I think there's a moment that we're in right now where Donald Trump, he's looking really, bad. You just can't even put that into words, right? He stirred up a crowd. It was an executive branch attack on the legislative branch, one of the worst days in American history. So I'll vote the right way, if I'm presented with that. I just think it's probably not the smartest move right now, but I think that's going to be out of my hands.
We are now waiting for a key procedural vote to take place to kick this all off formally. That should happen in the next 60 minutes. The standoff itself was all over Obamacare subsidies, so healthcare subsidies that the Democrats wanted extended. Republicans dead against that.
Here's what led to this moment. Trump has pushed Congress too far. The unauthorized military actions, the defiance of court rulings, the financial improprieties, the government shutdown that's paralyzing the country, all of it has been building and building. And Congress finally reached a breaking point. Lawmakers from both parties are saying, enough is enough. We can't let this continue. Trump either resigns right now, or we impeach him immediately and remove him from office. There's no more debate, no more waiting. This is happening today, and Trump has hours to decide what he's going to do. The formal impeachment resolution is already on the table. House Resolution 353. It lays out 7 detailed articles of impeachment: obstruction of justice, abuse of trade and emergency powers, national security violations, unconstitutional executive actions, all of it documented with specific examples and recent evidence. This isn't a symbolic vote. This isn't Democrats going through the motions. This is a serious, detailed case for removing Trump from office, and it has bipartisan support. Republicans are signing on to this, not just the usual Trump critics like Liz Cheney, moderate Republicans from swing districts, Republicans who've defended Trump in the past. They're all saying the same thing. He has to go. Either he resigns or we impeach him. Those are the only options. And the pressure isn't just coming from Congress. Major state governors are calling for Trump's resignation. Newspaper editorial boards across the country are saying he needs to step down. They're using language like existential threat to democracy. They're saying Trump's continued leadership is dangerous, that he's violated the Constitution so many times that he can no longer be trusted with presidential power. That's governors and newspapers, not just partisan politicians. That shows how widespread the opposition to Trump has become. This isn't just Democrats anymore. This is the political establishment across the board saying Trump has to go. What makes this ultimatum so powerful is the time frame, hours, not days or weeks, hours. Congress is saying you have until the end of today to resign. If you don't, we start impeachment proceedings tomorrow morning. and we're going to move fast. We're not going to let you delay or obstruct. We're going to vote on articles of impeachment within days, and we have the votes to pass them in the House. And based on the number of Republicans who are supporting this, we might even have the votes to convict in the Senate. That's the threat. That's what Trump is facing. The very real possibility that he could be impeached and removed from office within a week if he doesn't resign today. And Trump's allies are scrambling because they didn't see this coming. They thought they could weather another scandal. They thought Republicans would stick with Trump like they always have. But the coalition is fracturing. Moderate Republicans are breaking ranks. They're looking at the evidence. They're looking at their polling, and they're deciding that defending Trump is political suicide. So they're joining Democrats in calling for his removal. And that's creating panic in Trump's inner circle. Because if Republicans are abandoning him, Trump has no defense. He can't survive impeachment without Republican support. And that support is evaporating right now. Some lawmakers are even talking about the 25th Amendment. That's the constitutional provision that allows the cabinet to remove a president if he's unable to discharge the duties of his office. And some members of Congress are saying if Trump refuses to resign and if impeachment doesn't work fast enough, we need to pressure the cabinet to invoke the 25th Amendment to declare Trump unfit and remove him that way. That's how serious this has gotten. Congress is considering every possible mechanism to remove Trump from office, and they're willing to use whatever works fastest. The 7 articles of impeachment in House Resolution 353 are comprehensive. They document a pattern of constitutional violations, due process abuses, bypassing congressional oversight, ignoring court orders, using emergency powers for purposes they weren't intended for, putting national security at risk, obstructing justice. Every major scandal and violation from Trump's presidency is included, and each article has specific examples and evidence. This isn't vague or aspirational. This is a detailed legal case for removal. And it's strong enough that even some Republicans are saying, yeah, this is legitimate. These are real violations, and they warrant removal. So Trump has a choice to make, and he has hours to make it. Does he resign and leave office on his own terms? Does he fight and face impeachment, knowing he might lose? Does he try to negotiate some kind of deal where he steps down in exchange for protection from prosecution? All of those options are on the table, and Trump's decision is going to determine what happens next. If he resigns, we have a constitutional transition of power. The vice president becomes president, and Trump leaves Washington. If he fights, we have an impeachment trial that could remove him anyway, plus criminal prosecutions after he leaves office. So resignation might actually be his best option. But knowing Trump, he's not going to go quietly. He's going to fight. And that means we're about to see one of the most dramatic political battles in American history. All right, let's dig into the specific charges in House Resolution 353 and why even Republicans are supporting this impeachment effort. Because the details matter here. This isn't just political theater. This is a serious legal case with specific allegations backed by evidence. And understanding what Trump is actually being accused of helps explain why his support is collapsing. Article 1 is obstruction of justice. This covers Trump's efforts to interfere with investigations into his conduct, firing investigators, intimidating witnesses, refusing to comply with subpoenas, ordering his staff not to cooperate with Congress, all of it documented. Multiple instances over multiple years. And some Republicans who've defended Trump on other issues are saying, yeah, obstruction of justice is a clear line. If the president interferes with investigations into himself, that's impeachable. That's exactly the kind of abuse of power the framers were worried about. So even some Trump allies are willing to vote for this article. Article 2 is abuse of trade and emergency powers. Trump has used emergency declarations to bypass Congress and do things he doesn't have authority to do. Imposing tariffs without congressional approval, redirecting military funds for projects Congress didn't authorize, declaring emergencies that aren't really emergencies just to get around legislative restrictions. And this is an area where even conservative Republicans get uncomfortable because they believe in limited government and congressional authority over spending. So when Trump abuses emergency powers to circumvent Congress, that violates conservative principles. And that's why some Republicans are willing to impeach on this Article 2. Article 3 is national security violations. Trump has allegedly shared classified information inappropriately, made decisions that put national security at risk, ignored briefings from intelligence agencies, and most recently took unauthorized military actions without proper congressional authorization or consultation. That last one is huge because even Republicans who support a strong military believe the president has to follow proper procedures. You can't just order military strikes without telling Congress. You can't commit troops without proper authorization. And if Trump did that, it's not just bad judgment, it's a violation of his constitutional duty, and it's impeachable. Article 4 covers unconstitutional executive actions. Trump has issued executive orders that courts have struck down as illegal. He's claimed powers he doesn't have. He's defied court orders, and he's basically acted like the president is above the law. And that's resonating even with Republicans, because rule of law matters. If the president can just ignore courts and do whatever he wants, that's tyranny. That's exactly what the Constitution is designed to prevent. So Republicans who care about constitutional government are looking at this article and saying, yeah, this is a problem. This is impeachable. Article 5 is financial improprieties. This covers emoluments violations, Trump profiting from foreign governments while in office, using his position to benefit his businesses, refusing to divest or create real separation between his personal financial interests and his official duties. And there's evidence. Financial records showing payments from foreign entities to Trump properties, contracts signed while he's been president, all of it creating conflicts of interest. And even some Republicans who've defended Trump politically are uncomfortable with this because it looks corrupt. It looks like Trump is using the presidency to enrich himself, and that's not okay. Article 6 covers abuse of the pardon power. Trump has pardoned allies who refuse to cooperate with investigations into him. He's dangled pardons to people to encourage them not to testify. He's basically used the pardon power as a tool to obstruct justice and protect himself and his friends, and that's an abuse. The pardon power is supposed to be used for mercy and justice, not as a personal protection racket. So Congress is saying this is impeachable too. Article 7 is incitement and failure to protect. This relates to January 6th, Trump's role in inciting the attack on the Capitol, his failure to stop it once it started, his refusal to call in National Guard or tell his supporters to stand down for hours while the Capitol was under siege. And this is probably the most powerful article politically because everyone saw what happened on January 6th. Everyone saw Trump's speech that morning. Everyone saw him do nothing while the Capitol was attacked. And the evidence that's come out since then has only made it worse, showing Trump was pleased by what was happening, that he resisted efforts to stop it, that he wanted the certification disrupted. So even some Republicans who've defended Trump on other things look at January 6th and say, okay, that's too far, that's impeachable. So those are the 7 articles, and together they paint a picture of a president who systematically violated the Constitution and abused his power. And the evidence backing each article is substantial. Witness testimony, documents, recordings, financial records, all of it documented in the resolution. This isn't vague or speculative. This is specific charges with specific evidence. And that's why even Republicans are supporting it. Now let's talk about the political dynamics that led to this ultimatum, because Congress has been building to this moment for a while. Every Trump scandal, every violation, every defiance of congressional oversight, it's been accumulating. And Republicans have been getting increasingly uncomfortable. They've defended Trump publicly while privately expressing concerns, and those concerns have been growing as Trump's behavior has gotten more extreme. The current government shutdown is what pushed things over the edge. Trump is demanding funding that Congress won't give him, and rather than negotiate or compromise, he's let the government shut down. Federal workers aren't getting paid. Government services are suspended, and it's all because Trump won't back down. Republicans in swing districts are getting hammered for this. Their constituents are calling and emailing saying, why isn't the government working? Why are you letting Trump do this? And Republicans don't have good answers. So they're looking for a way out, and impeachment is starting to look like that way out. If Republicans remove Trump, they can blame him for the shutdown and everything else. They can say, we tried to work with him, but he was impossible, so we had to remove him for the good of the country. And then they can move forward with a new president who's hopefully more reasonable. That political calculation is driving some Republican support for impeachment. It's not that they suddenly care about constitutional violations. It's that defending Trump has become too politically costly, and removing him might actually help them in 2026. Democrats, meanwhile, have been planning this for weeks. They've been building their case, gathering evidence, lining up witnesses, preparing the articles of impeachment, and they've been quietly reaching out to moderate Republicans to see who might be willing to join them. And as Republicans have gotten more desperate to distance themselves from Trump, Democrats have been there saying, we have a solution. Vote for impeachment, remove Trump, and we can move forward. That coordination between Democrats and moderate Republicans is what made this ultimatum possible. The ultimatum itself is strategic. By giving Trump hours instead of days, Congress is trying to prevent him from mounting a defense or rallying his supporters. They're trying to move so fast that Trump doesn't have time to respond effectively. And they're betting that the shock of the ultimatum, combined with the bipartisan support, will convince Trump that fighting is futile, that he should just resign and save himself the humiliation of being impeached and removed. But Trump's response so far has been defiant. According to reports, he's refusing to resign. He's telling his staff that Congress is bluffing, that Republicans won't actually vote to impeach him, that this is just political theater, and he might be right about that. Because even with moderate Republicans breaking ranks, it's still not clear that there are enough votes in the Senate to actually remove Trump. You need 2/3 of the Senate. That's 67 votes. Democrats have about 50, so they need 17 Republicans. And while some Republicans are supporting impeachment, getting to 17 is still a stretch. But Congress is betting that once impeachment starts moving, momentum will build, that as evidence is presented publicly, more Republicans will feel pressure to vote yes, that the political cost of defending Trump will become so high that Republicans have no choice but to remove him. And they might be right, because if public hearings are held and the evidence is presented on national television, it becomes very hard for Republicans to vote against impeachment without looking like they're complicit in Trump's violations. Okay, let's break this down into clear points so you understand exactly what's happening. Point 1. Over 120 House members and 7 senators gave Trump an hours-long ultimatum to resign or face immediate impeachment. This is unprecedented. Congress has never moved this fast or been this direct before. They're not threatening impeachment investigations or hearings that might lead to impeachment someday. They're saying resign today or we impeach you tomorrow. That's an extraordinary level of urgency and pressure, and it shows how serious Congress is about removing Trump from office right now. Point 2. House Resolution 353 contains 7 detailed articles of impeachment with specific charges and evidence. This isn't a rushed or symbolic resolution. This is a comprehensive legal case for removal, obstruction of justice, abuse of emergency powers, national security violations, constitutional violations, financial improprieties, abuse of pardons, incitement and failure to protect. Each article is backed by specific examples and documented evidence. This is the kind of impeachment resolution that could actually result in conviction and removal if it gets the votes. Point 3. The charges include unauthorized military actions, defiance of court rulings, and financial improprieties during the ongoing government shutdown. These are the specific violations that push Congress over the edge. Trump taking military action without proper authorization, Trump ignoring court orders, Trump profiting from his office, and Trump letting the government shut down rather than compromise. All of it happening simultaneously. And Congress is saying, this is too much. We can't let this continue. He has to be removed. Point 4. Moderate Republicans are breaking ranks and joining calls for Trump's removal, creating bipartisan support for impeachment. This is the game changer. If this was just Democrats, Trump could survive. But with Republicans joining in, the political dynamics shift completely. Now Trump can't claim this is partisan. He can't rally his base by saying it's a witch hunt, because his own party is turning on him. And that makes removal much more likely. Because if Republicans are willing to vote for impeachment, they might be willing to vote for conviction too. Point 5. Major state governors and newspaper editorials are calling Trump's leadership an existential threat to democracy. This shows how widespread the opposition has become. It's not just Congress, it's governors who have to work with the federal government. It's newspaper editorial boards across the political spectrum, all of them saying the same thing. Trump is dangerous, he's violated the Constitution, he needs to be removed. That broad consensus makes it harder for Trump to survive politically, because he's not just fighting Congress, he's fighting the entire political establishment. Point 6. Some lawmakers are discussing the 25th Amendment as a backup if impeachment doesn't work fast enough. This shows how determined Congress is to remove Trump. They're not just relying on one mechanism, they're considering all options. Resignation, impeachment, the 25th Amendment, whatever works fastest. And the fact that they're willing to pressure the cabinet to invoke the 25th Amendment shows they're serious about removing Trump by any means necessary. Point 7. Trump has hours to decide whether to resign or fight, with his decision determining what happens next. This is the pressure point. Trump knows that if he fights and loses, he gets impeached and removed, which is more humiliating than resignation. He also knows that after he leaves office, he faces criminal prosecution. So he might try to negotiate a deal where he resigns in exchange for protection. But so far, he's apparently refusing to resign, which means we're headed for an impeachment battle. And that battle is going to be intense and fast-moving. Point 8. The ultimatum threatens to permanently split the GOP between Trump loyalists and moderates seeking to save their political careers. This is the long-term consequence of this moment. The Republican Party is fracturing. Trump loyalists think this is a betrayal. Moderates think it's necessary for political survival. And those two factions might not be able to coexist in the same party anymore. So we could be watching the beginning of a Republican civil war that reshapes American politics for a generation. Point 9. Legal experts warn the coming hours could define Trump's legacy and reshape Congress's relationship with the executive branch. Because if Congress succeeds in forcing Trump out through impeachment or resignation, that sets a powerful precedent. It shows that Congress can hold presidents accountable even when they're defiant and have significant political support. It reestablishes that no president is above the law, and it could make future presidents think twice before violating the Constitution. But if Congress fails, if Trump survives this ultimatum, that also sets a precedent that presidents can defy Congress and courts without real consequences. So the stakes here extend far beyond Trump personally. Point 10. This is one of the most intense constitutional moments in modern U.S. history, potentially reshaping government in the 2026 elections. Because we're watching a constitutional crisis unfold in real time, Congress trying to remove a sitting president through an hours-long ultimatum, a president refusing to cooperate or resign, political parties fracturing, and all of it happening while the government is shut down, and multiple other crises are ongoing. The outcome will define not just Trump's presidency, but the balance of power between branches of government and the future of American democracy. So, where does this leave us? Trump has hours to decide, resign or fight, and his decision determines what happens next. If he resigns, we have a constitutional transition. The vice president becomes president. Trump leaves office, and the country tries to move forward. If he fights, Congress moves forward with impeachment. They hold hearings, they present evidence, they vote, and if they have the votes, Trump gets removed anyway. But the process is more drawn out and more damaging to everyone involved. My guess? Trump fights. Because that's who he is. He doesn't back down. He doesn't admit defeat. Even when it's his best option strategically, he fights anyway. So we're probably headed for an impeachment battle, and it's going to be fast and intense. Congress has already said they're not going to let Trump delay or obstruct. They're moving forward quickly. Hearings within days, votes within a week. They want this resolved before Trump can mount an effective defense or rally his supporters. And the outcome is genuinely uncertain. Trump might survive if Senate Republicans stick with him, or he might be removed if enough Republicans decide defending him is too politically costly. It all depends on how the next few days play out, how the evidence is presented, how the public reacts, how vulnerable Republicans calculate their political interests. All of that is in flux right now, and we're watching it happen in real time. This is history. This is a constitutional crisis. This is the moment that could end Trump's presidency or prove that he's untouchable, and we'll know the answer very soon. Within hours or days, this whole thing resolves one way or another. So yeah, stay tuned, because what happens next is going to reshape American politics for years to come.